Welcome! Hey, everybody, it's me, Halfd0rk. Threw you for a loop there, huh? So, today, we're reviewing more Game Maker basics. Yay, Game Maker! Honestly, nowhere else I'd rather be. Welcome to another Sandstorm stream. I am your host, Halfd0rk. So, again, this is a live stream, live recorded. We are broadcasting currently on Twitch. So, anybody in the Twitch chat is more than welcome to throw out any questions, especially when it comes to the Sandbox ecosystem, Vox Edit, uploading assets, the marketplace, Game Maker itself. No matter what you're struggling with, let me try to help you. I think troubleshooting is something that we really aim to help improve the community and help people get started building their own games and whatever they're visualizing become a reality. So welcome in. I see Cynthia's out there. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome. So, yeah, another place to ask questions. If you're reviewing this later, maybe you checking out the VOD over on YouTube or Twitch, you can always ask questions on Discord. Feel free to tag me. I'm at Halfd0rk. So, good place to reach out. Also, Twitter. Feel free to follow us there. Now, there weren't any, mandatory announcements. There are a couple contests that you guys can still sign up for. I know Decentralands is going to the 15th, and I think Sandboxes is, the next one's right around the corner. So just keep, an ear out to social media to join in the next one. So today we're going to be talking about basic mechanics. I want to make sure there is a foundation of learning for those of you just getting started in our favorite metaverse. So let's go ahead and hop into it, shall we? Now, a couple things, excuse me, that I wanted to touch up on. Last week, there was a specific mechanic introduced to us by the community. Vvox made sure to, let Alex Kamisaze know about this one. So this is a lesser known thing that you can do, and this is a more advanced technique for those of you that are a little bit more intermediate in your skill level. You can hold down right control to get more out of your terraforming. So if I hold down right control and then click a block, it does the entire level. Now this can be useful for a number of reasons. We also discovered that if you right control inside of a space, it'll fill. So this is more or less the fill tool that a lot of people were asking for. Turns out it was a thing. It existed, just nobody really knew about it. It wasn't in the key bindings or anything of that nature. And so I highly encourage you all to explore the right control on your keyboard and using different blocks to figure out, what works best. It seems to be an additive block mechanic. So for example, I have my mouse hovering and it's doing, the next layer up. I don't know. Let's find out. I can't seem to replace blocks. However, maybe if I do right control and alt together, nope. It seems to be additive only, but there is, lots to do with this mechanic. Left control, meanwhile, replaces. And so you can replace many blocks at a time. But yeah, right control on your keyboard has a completely different functionality, and it makes a layer wherever your mouse is currently located. And it's a fill tool. So if I had an entire row here, it's going to fill out that entire row. Anyway, moving on. Just figured we'd share that. Hi, what's up, Ninja Puppy in a Box? Love the name. Hi, can we make a platform moving in a circle? So there is a really simple way to do that. And then there's like a super complex way to do that. So I'm going to show you the simple way. And then maybe we can talk about making the complex one. But I think the simple one is what you're looking for. So let's take a look at just a generic asset. Let's do a tree, because a tree will be easier to understand, or at least look at. So we have our tree, and you want it to rotate in a circle. I mean, the easy solution to that would be to use the bird behavior. And so a bird behavior, you can see it rotates in a circle. We'll even hop into the game and see it in action. And so right now, you'll be like, but that's not a perfect circle, Halfd0rk. And you're absolutely right. Instead, it's got like this randomization to it. So what you can do is you can edit these settings here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the health. We don't need that. And you have a flying speed, a minimum width, a maximum width, a height, and a max height. So let's go ahead and make the flying speed whatever. But here's the kicker. We want 2 for the minimum, and we'll do 2 for the maximum. And then we're also going to set the height to a 2 and a 2. And let's see what that did. So now we have a perfect circle of our tree kind of flying around. I guess it's still kind of wobbling a little bit, but it still has collisions, so you're able to interact with it. You're able to jump on it. So you can use this for a number of mechanics. I have seen a couple creators do some really interesting mechanics that I won't get too much into details, but you could have an asset that rotates around another asset. And you're looking for a platform moving in a circle. So what you could do is you could have this asset be parented where it's facing the asset. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So it's gonna face, and we'll just see if we can make it work this first time around. I enjoy a little bit of a challenge every once in a while. So we're going to detect our tree, and the tree is going to cause us to rotate. So it's going to look, it says look at player, but secretly it's looking at whatever tag it's detecting. So in this case, it's going to be our tree. So the tree, we're going to give the tree tag. And we want this to cause our lamp, so this is a lamp, we want it to rotate towards the tree. So in order to do that, we need this to essentially move in the direction we want it to go, right? So we'll just keep this as is, the same settings, the bird settings. Let's see what happens. So we've already tagged the tree. The tree has the bird behavior. The last step is to do tree anchor, and this is just going to be tree baby. So it's like a parent and a child. So we can just see if this works. I don't want to get too into details because I was asked to go over beginner basics today, and so right now we're exploring a different type of mechanic. That is not doing what I wanted it to do. We can even see the lamp is rotating to face our tree. So how could we fix that? If it's rotating to face it, I know there's a way to set this up though. Maybe we could have it platform in and out. If this did it. Nope. Maybe the other direction? Right now it is rotating, but not the way we wanted it to do it. Okay. I mean, it's rotating. So using the speaker component is how you'll be able to make something rotate on a more like circular plane. Right now, I'm not really giving you the proper, explanation. It would require a lot of trial and error. But for now, we're gonna walk through the basics. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Welcome to the Sandstorm stream. I hope you're all having a nice day. Tree, baby. Hey, what's happening? Ale's here. Hi, Ale. Escape Room Artist, welcome. Go West, how you doing? And Ninja Puppy Inbox, feel free to send me a DM. I would love to work through this later with you. Today, we're going to be going over some beginner basic mechanics. Hey, welcome in, Nuke Skywalker. How's it going? So, when it comes to beginner mechanics, we're going to be talking about behaviors and components. So, the difference between a behavior and a component are essentially the artificial intelligence. Think of that as your behavior. Like, what can an asset do in the sandbox? Well, that's a behavior. Whereas a component is like a health bar, or I can pick up an asset. So it's not so much as an artificial intelligence, but rather a use case, or it's a purpose for the asset. So we can take a quick look at maybe a character. Let's pull up Jet. So Jet here has two different logic slots, and we can actually add multiple components, but you can only have one behavior. So that's, again, the artificial intelligence. So we can see here, there's a none. So, resetting it if you need to. The dev only waygate, it's strange how it's still here, but we don't really need it because it doesn't do anything for us. I believe in the future, this is going to be how you go from different lands while you're, hopping around the metaverse. And then we're just going to go step by step here, and then we're going to see all of the different use cases that you can hop around the map. So animated decoration would be the first one. And so Jet, we can totally have him doing a different animation just when we approach him. So right now he's just dancing. Look at him go. Some other behaviors. And, I won't go through the list. I don't want to bore you. Instead, we're going to go step by step and explore this map that was presented to us in the templates section of the Sandbox Game Maker. But there's an entire list of different artificial intelligence or behaviors that you can add to your assets. So we have decorations, askers, asset spawners, basic platforms, birds, buttons, citizens, doors, farmers, healers, melee enemies, message broadcasters, multi, so that spawns blocks, plants, predators, prey, replace assets, soldiers, and voids. So each one of these has a very unique purpose inside of the sandbox. And then we also have components. So we're going to be talking through each of these as well. You have your climbable, collectible, defeat, drop, health, indicator, NFT details display, pickable, play sound, rarity VFX, speaker, toggle behavior, and victory. So each of these are relatively self-explanatory. Like adding a climbable component, for example, will allow me to climb Jet. I don't know when you would ever need that, but it's a possibility. Yeah, Nuke Skywalker, that would be tab. Tab is what you're looking for. Let me see here. I'm going to put up on screen the key bindings as I push them. So this is a software I use called NoBoard. So you'll be able to see what buttons I'm pushing as I push them. So hitting tab on your keyboard will hop you into play mode and outside of play mode. So yeah, just a quick demonstration of everything you're looking at on screen for the super basics. You have your tools on the left side of the screen. So that's your brush tool, which is to paint assets. Usually you would be using blocks with this tool. You have your move tool. So if you select an asset, it's going to pop up with this gizmo. You have your rotation tool. So these are all on the left side. With the rotation tool, this gizmo allows you to rotate on each different axis. You can also rotate it omnidirectionally by just grabbing this giant white orb. And then you have a select tool. So if you just wanted to select objects and just work in their behaviors and components, it makes it a lot easier because you're not actively like moving it around on accident. Because these other ones, like it's pretty easy to just click that on accident. And then finally on the tools section, you also have presets. This is a tutorial we'll be doing later in the year. So, like a week or two from now, we'll be talking about presets in length. For now, we're going to be, introducing behaviors and components. We also have these buttons up here at the top. We have the home. So this would be like the exit to the main menu. We have a save. So you'll always want to save your game. You can do Control S to save. You have your undo and your redo. So if I were to move Jet and rotate them, I can undo, I think up to 20 times is the limit. We don't need to test that right now. That was my first thought. It's like, is it 20? Ooh, thank you, Mosquito. Welcome in. And Nuke, I've been building assets for a bit now. We're going to Game Maker and its mechanics. Yes, anything you have questions, Nuke, feel free to ask. Ale, the game maker download is on the Sandbox site. And yes, that's Mosquita sharing that. Much appreciated, Mosquita. So, other buttons, we have undo, redo, we have rules. So in the rules section, I would ignore this first column. This is more or less when you're building a game and you're ready to release it. This is something you can set up where it's going to give this like title screen here. But I wouldn't worry too much about it right now. So we're going to keep that disabled. We have quests. So this is going to be a big part of our series here on the Sandstorm, where we're going to talk about quests and how to interact with them. For now, we're going to work on behaviors and components. These quests are going to be a later episode, unless those of you here would prefer that. So Nuke Skywalker or any other, beginner entry-level game makers, you direct me. Ask me what you'd like to learn. I'll try my best to teach you. Then we also have the victory and the defeat. So these will also be closer to the end of your game when you're ready to, finish. Like basically, let's just say defeating Jet is how we beat the game. There will be a specific mechanic associated with that. But just because we're talking about it, let's say I wanted there to be a victory screen, a way to end the game. We can attach that via a victory component. And so all you have to do is probably kill Jet. Easier said than done. Jet's a really tough individual. But I can change his health to 1. And so because we have a victory condition and we enabled the victory, we can now achieve that end game experience of having a victory screen. Cool. So that is generally the rules. Again, the quests there's quite a few different settings. So we're going to review the quests at a later time. And then we have the global parameters. Nice to learn with you. Of course, I'm glad to help. So global parameters, we'll just review this real quick. There's, some things you could tweak that might make a difference. So like having a tag might help you later in the game. We'll have some use cases for this when we need it, but generally speaking, I can have something detect me, the avatar specifically, or I could have it, detect any human. So for example, if Jet or I walk into a specific area, it would activate. Otherwise, Jet doesn't have the avatar tag, which is exclusive to the player character. It is worth mentioning you could just write the avatar tag for him. But by default, the player has the avatar tag. Oh, that's cool. Apparently giving Jet the avatar tag, I can't remove it now. We can remove Jet, though. Anyway, we can also change the player character. The only way to do that is to use this drop-down menu, and you can do a custom avatar. So, for example, I could play as Adventurer Panda Pops, change out my equipment, if I wanted to. Changing out your equipment is whatever is in your inventory, something you've made in VoxEdit, or an NFT you've purchased on your account. Then we have our camera settings. You can change your camera to first person, third person, angled, or top down. So the difference between angled and top down is the camera parameters. So a top down camera, you can just change the distance. Whereas the angled, you're able to rotate your camera around. But we're going to be staying in third person. It's highly recommended using the Sandbox to have third person because that's just the general, MMO experience where you're able to control your character and you have a lot more free reign and you're able to use a lot more of the space using third person. But there's some really cool things you can do in first person and angled cameras. So whatever your game, needs, you can change it here. Controller settings. This is going to be the player's specific settings. Notice how I have a very limited selection here. But if I have the player's avatar, my settings should be a little bit larger. This has fewer settings than I remember. I'm supposed to be able to edit my health. I'm not sure why I can't edit my health right now. So we have the player avatar. That's a little bit peculiar. Usually your health component would be here. Oh, my game maker crashed. That's why. Haha. Good prank, game maker. So I can't exit this menu. I'm like, why is it not working? What's happening? It's because game maker had a brain fart. New Skywalker says, I'm having trouble getting the asker to ask the questions in the right order. I just figured out that each asker can only ask one question. And you have to layer invisible askers on top of each other. Yes. So the best way to describe it is like a page in a book. So if you're flipping through a book, you're going from page to page. However, like it's possible to go from, page 1 to page 10. But you're telling, this page like, hey, you can go to page 1 or you can go to page 10. So just to take a quick look at asker behaviors, which I made my own personal asset in VoxEdit for my asker behaviors. We can see here in the settings that you have a message required to start it. So we'll say this is our book. And we'll say you are currently reading page 1. So that is when I interact with Jet. So we're going to do talk to Jet. That's going to kickstart our dialogue. So instead of book, I'll say it's speaker named Jet. So then with Jet, he needs to be able to activate that. So he's going to do a speaker component. And we can have him, have a little text bubble above his head. So that's what the hello is. But when we speak to him, he's going to send out that message, talk to Jet. So with that set up, now when I talk to Jet, it's going to start this asker dialogue. I'll have a short delay before our replies show up. So this is Jet talking. He says, you are currently reading page 1. Then my responses say, I feel good or not so good. We'll change this to, I want to talk more. Sorry, I have to go. So if we say, I want to talk more, we can say Jet page 2. And if I have any other message for this, sorry, I have to go, that doesn't do anything. So for example, this is A1, A2, A3, A4. None of those do anything by default. So the Sandbox basically gave you empty messages that have no purpose. So right now, if I talk to him, I say, I want to talk more, jet.page.2, the message goes out. So what we'll do is we'll have a second asker. And again, you'll want to use an asset that doesn't have a lot of, polygons or faces. So we can see here, Jet has his ears, his hair, his body, each of his arms. He even has an animation playing. You'll want to make each asker, asset its own particular asset. So it's its own unique, object in 3D space that you can assign this artificial intelligence. And the less faces it has, the more optimized your game will be in the end. Cool. So this is our second page. So we're going to do page 2. So jet.page.2 was the message. And then Jet's going to say, you're currently reading page 2. Nice talking with you. And this one, we're not going to have any messages other than, sorry, I have to go. That will allow us to close out that dialogue. Cool. So let's just test it real quick. We can see Jet here. When I interact with him, Jet says, you're currently reading page 1. And if we say, sorry, I have to go, that'll end our dialogue. I can walk up to him again. Same thing. But this time I want to talk more. Now Jet says, you're currently reading page 2. Nice talking with you. And then we say, sorry, I have to go. And that ends the dialogue. For me as a game developer, I highly recommend you go into VoxEdit and you make just one asset that is simple. So this is a large rectangle, pretty much. It's a gigantic cylinder with only 4 faces. The only thing different about it is its colors. And those colors also, write out something. So for you, Nuke Skywalker, your homework is to make a super simple asset. Like, this is something I would recommend to anyone starting out. They make their own asset that they mentally understand, like, oh, this is for logic. This is something that I don't ever have the character see. And so, saying that out loud, I would also hide these assets. Once I've set them up, once they're ready to go, I will turn them invisible. If I have to edit them again, I'll make sure they're visible. So I, the game developer, understand, like, oh, I'm still working on this. Another thing to keep in mind with Asker behaviors, by default, it gives them health components. So you'll probably want to remove those. But yeah, just a quick detour there. So I hope that helps you. Hi, Vvox, welcome in. And you're trying to link the dialogue and the quest. Well, Nuke, I'm glad you're here. And because you're here live with us, I want to make sure that your questions are answered. So let's go ahead and link Jet's dialogue with the quest, because I think that's important. It's something we're going to learn eventually, so why not learn it now? And you're here, so let's make it happen. So this is going to be Jet's quest. So Jet's quest, he's going to say, and this description, this quest description will not appear until we've accepted the quest. So Jet's going to tell us everything he wants us to do. So Jet's going to say on our page 1, so again, I've made 2 pages of dialogue. Jet says, oh my goodness, I need the help of an adventurer. 3 exclamation points, that's important. And so we, the player, will say, how can I help you? Or, sorry, I have to go. So if we say, how can I help you? That'll take us to page 2. And so Jet will say, oh, thank you. I need a soccer ball. Not just any soccer ball. My long lost granddaddy's soccer ball. And then we as the player will say, I'll see if I can find it. ... So this message, us responding to him on page 2 of the dialogue, is going to start that quest. So we're going to set a message exclusively for that. So we'll say jet.quest. Personally, I use periods instead of spaces inside of messages. And the important thing to note here is spaces will work. I use periods because it's almost like a style in a way. If I'm reading messages, or if I'm reading any text in my game, if I see periods instead of spaces, I immediately understand, oh, that's a message. That is logic. That is something the player will never see. It also makes it consistent to where all of my messages are using these periods so that it's kind of like its own language. And so Sandbox itself is visual scripting. And so when you begin to have your own way to visually script, aka periods instead of spaces, it becomes a lot easier. Like you're kind of like teaching yourself in a way. Anyway, moving on. We have this message, jet.quest. So I'm talking to Jet, and let's go ahead and just run through it. Right now, it's automatically activating the quest. That's not what we want. So right now, Jet says, oh my goodness, I need the help of an adventurer. And he says, oh, thank you. I need a soccer ball, not just any soccer ball. My long lost granddaddy soccer ball. So what we want to do is have Jet's quest unlock. We can have it automatically unlock. this is important for when you have multiple quests that are like chronological. For now, this is the only quest we have. We're going to move past it. We're going to have the quest launch only when we talk to Jet and we say jet.quest. And this is, again, the message. So this is me as a game developer reading the text jet.quest and understanding, oh, that is a logic message. And then the quest type is us collecting objects. By default, it has tag, quest item, amount 5. We're going to have tag as ball and amount as 1. So that's what we're finding, our granddaddy's long lost soccer ball. And so the quest itself, we will return to this once we've set this up. But yes, just as a recap, Jet's quest, we can have a description. Find the lost soccer ball. So that's our objective, what we as the player are told to do. The unlock quest, again, we're not touching it until we have a more than one quest. Having an unlock feature is important when you have like a chronological series of events. That's when you would want to use this particular feature, unlock. Right now, we're going to have the launch quest that requires a message. We can see that it automatically launched when we had the auto launch, but we're going to have it require the message jet.quest. So let's go ahead and see that in action. We talk to Jet. He says, I need the help. So we can see here, no quest has appeared yet. But when I say, I'll see if I can find it, then the quest appears on screen. Great. Well, right now we don't have the ball on the field. So let's go ahead and add the ball. Also, we can talk to him again. If you'd like, we can also have him say something else once we're on the quest. So that's a different feature. We'll revisit that. I think that's a fun addition as well. Cool. So let's make our ball. So we want the soccer ball. And we're going to hide it over behind the tree. So our soccer ball, it's important to add a tag. So that's how we tell the quest system that this is a soccer ball. And more specifically, it's the ball needed for the quest. If we were to, have multiple balls, like let's say you have several quests where each one is a different ball, you would want to, change the tag to be more specific, such as soccer.ball. And so you would want that to be more specific. For now, we're just going to use ball. And then we also need to add the collectible component. So that allows me, when I collide with it, or if I were to interact with it, our choice, it's going to pick up the ball. And then finally, once we've picked up the ball, which I'll show you, we accept the quest. We go pick up the ball. Well, now that we have the ball, how do I turn in the quest? And now it's set to autocomplete. So instead, we're going to have it to where I have to talk to Jet again. So we'll go back into our quest rules, and instead of auto-completing the quest, we're going to require message, and it's going to be the same message that talks to Jet. So basically talking to Jet again is going to complete the quest. And then the action after completion is what makes these quests come full circle. So essentially, I can make a message that unlocks the next quest. So if we have a linear quest progression, I would send out a message that is exclusive to this quest. So this would be jet.quest.complete. And that would be Mary's quest. So we'll do Mary's quest next. This one will require jet.quest.complete. And so this would be a linear progression. And not every game is going to be linear. Sometimes you're going to have a game where you're out exploring, and it's more fun to have quests as you encounter them. But again, it's up to you as the game designer to make those choices. Cool. So we'll revisit Mary's quest once we're happy with Jet's quest. And so what we'll do is now we can go ahead and test that quest setup to where we talk to Jet twice. We accept his quest. We go pick up the ball. And now it's not going to autocomplete. In fact, I think I did it so fast that it didn't work as intended. Oh, one thing to double check here. Let's try it one more time. I think I picked up the ball before the quest even registered. Okay, so we find the ball. Now we can see that on the right side, it says the ball is in our inventory. We have 1 out of 1 ball. We can talk to Jet again. And this time it fills that quest completion narrative, and it's starting Mary's quest. Not quite sure why there's 2. That seems like a bug. Cool. So I hope that helps you. We went on a little bit of a detour, but I think that was a very good detour. It might have helped someone else out there. So if you have any other questions relative to that topic, do let us know, Nuke. Otherwise, I'm going to get back to just the basics, making sure everybody understands the core mechanics that come with the Game Maker. So we've already talked about the avatar, the camera, and then the controller. So we can see here, now that Game Maker didn't crash, I have a much more widespread array of settings. You can see here there's a lock next to all of these. And so there is by default a lock on the player avatar. So this is the avatar that everyone has their own version. You basically designed your character, you picked your hair, you changed your wardrobe, etc. So this character is the same for everybody. And so that's why all of these settings are locked. If I were to pick a custom avatar, which we saw the Game Maker did not like when I was swapping between these very much, but when I have custom avatar, these are unlocked. They're also dependent on whatever gems your character has. So let's say, for example, with Panda Pops, her gems, include luck or power. So that would cause her character to have a much different set of components and various speeds or damage. But we're going to take a quick look at the health component of the player character. So it's important to note that there are default settings, such as checkpoint. So a checkpoint is a very common term in a video game. Yeah, no worries, Nuke. Feel free to drop more questions if you got them. We got 20 more minutes left in the stream, so yeah, it's free game. You're the only one asking questions, so anything you got, I'll be happy to answer. And that goes for anybody else out there. If you have questions when it comes to Game Maker, box edit, etc., happy to take a detour, do my best to answer them. So with the checkpoint, this is something that we will visit later in our series. It's going to be such as when the character dies, respawning in a different location. We can even take a quick look at that because I think it's an important mechanic to understand. A couple things. We're going to have lava. So our lava is going to be near Jet. Right now, if I were to walk in the lava, it does nothing. It's chill up. It's just red water. It's spicy water. So the spicy water currently does no damage to the character. So we're going to set that up in the same settings. So we want spicy water, aka lava, to deal damage. So it's a damaging block. So that block damage, we want it to automatically kill us if we touch it. So we're setting it to 100. And when it kills us, a couple things happen. We can see here that I respawn at the closest checkpoint, and I can also have a game over if I don't want to respawn instead. A couple other things. I think destroy is not something I want to set as the player character, but I'm actually very curious what happens. Because game over was its own setting. So what does destroy do? Okay, so game over is the exact same thing as destroy in the player setting. Curious why they added that. Anyway, We can also reset. So this is another option for when the character dies. It's just going to make me immortal. So I'm just going to respawn. It seems to always respawn me at the checkpoint, though. If I recall, I might be able to change it to where I'm just constantly like dying and undying if I change this to a negative. So this is something you'll hear me as a game dev talk a lot about. Negative numbers remove animations. So by default, it's set to 0. You saw my character fall over and then kind of like die. If I have a negative number, it actually removes that die animation. So we can see it in action. Right now, it is respawning me. The reset function seems to have the same exact idea as the respawn to tag, which is something you'll probably include in your game more often than not. So a checkpoint, if you, let's say, have a parkour game, your parkour game is probably going to get progressively harder. You're going to want checkpoints. So what you can do my bot activated. I'll turn my bot off. Anyway, checkpoints have with a spawning point. So for example, if I'm closer to this asset compared to my starting asset, and it has the checkpoint tag, no, parkour, I'll then spawn at the closer asset. The only problem is, if I were to spawn too close, to one or the other, it's always going to pick the closer of the two. So what you want is a trigger to spawn this spawning point. And there is a relatively complex way to make this happen, but I'm going to walk through it step by step because I think it's important to learn these things. So yeah, we'll just keep it all on this one asset as best as we can. So I'm going to remove the checkpoint tag, and what I'll do is I'll have an asset spawner attached to it. So it's going to spawn on top of itself an asset. We'll use a number pad that has two things. It's going to have a tag, so it needs that checkpoint tag that we set up. And then it also needed a message required. So it needs to understand, hey, the player reached this checkpoint. So now, he can start respawning here rather than back at, the starting location. So we'll do checkpoint. I'll do cp.1 for my own personal reference. One more thing I would add to it is a plant or health component. And so again, this is, a little bit beyond beginner level, but it might be interesting to some. So we'll have a checkpoint tagged number switch that spawns when the cp.1 message is sent out. Last but not least, we're going to have kind of like a lamp. I love lamp. But lamps themselves can be kind of like games like Sonic or Mario, where when you walk past it, it's going to shout a message. Checkpoint reached. And so when it notices the player, so the player has finally crossed that threshold, and we'll make sure it's beyond the lava. When they cross that threshold, it's going to spit out that message, cp.1, which caused our, number pad with the checkpoint tag to spawn. So quick test here. If I die in the lava next to my checkpoint, it's going to send me back to the home base. But if I reach the end and it says checkpoint reached, now I'm spawning at this checkpoint. Cool. A good example of checkpoints themselves. The last thing you would do is if you have a multiple checkpoints. So let's go ahead and make some more lava. You're going to want to destroy the previous ones. And so that's why we have a health component. So when we attach a health component, that allows me to destroy it later. One other thing I would do is I would hide the number pad that's spawning underground a little bit. So I'd put like a -1, probably closer to half, so -0.5, but still spawning like pretty much right under it. But now you can't see it. Also, you wouldn't be able to, attack it and destroy it. And lastly, we want this checkpoint here to be only once. So I can't, go backwards in my checkpoints. Cool. With those set up, and again, we only use these two assets. One asset that communicated like, hey, the player reached a checkpoint. And it send out a message saying, hey, there's a player that reached a checkpoint, CP.1. We also had the asset spawner. So this is the relative asset that spawns the checkpoint. So we're going to take both of these, duplicate them, and we're going to make checkpoint number 2. We'll set those back where they were, and this is our checkpoint 2. So this one, again, says checkpoint reached when we get to it. And this one, instead, will send out CP.2. Another thing is I would probably remove the name. So instead of it saying interior lamp, I just hit backspace on that. And that way, it's going to be a no-name asset saying checkpoint reached. And then lastly, we change our asset spawner to where it has the message required as CP.2. However, this one needs to have a new mechanic. This one is going to tell the other one, hey, your time is up. You have to go now. So we don't want CP1 to exist anymore. We want to kill the previous one. So in order to make that, let's go ahead and walk through the steps. So this is going to spawn a checkpoint with a health component. So this one will also potentially be killed. So what we can do is when we have CP2 message go out, so when the player reaches this one, this same message will kill this checkpoint. And the easiest way to do that is using presets. And so I want to introduce presets now because we're talking about them, because it's important to learn these. So a preset is essentially everything that this asset spawner was doing, but it's pre-made. So we see it has a number pad switch, it has a checkpoint tag, and it has a health component. The message required is attached to the asset spawner, so we don't have to worry about that. Essentially, everything that has green text, we can preset. So with this number pad, we're going to make that preset. So again, it had a health component, and it just had a tag. I'm fairly certain that was it, right? So number pad, checkpoint, health component. Cool. So we can go to health component, and we'll go ahead and add our checkpoint tag. And this one, it's going to be destroyed. We'll hide the health bar. We don't need to see it, but it's going to be destroyed once we reach CP.2. So we're spawning this instead of our normal number pad switch. We're spawning a pre-built number pad that has a death message. So basically, when this message goes out, which is us reaching this section right here, it's going to die, and thus only one checkpoint will be active at a time. And so if you have a sequential parkour course, there won't be any problems. If you have a non-sequential parkour course, it's a different problem entirely. So we're not going to cover it today. But this one should work for our uses. The last thing we need to do is save that preset. So we'll create new. This will be CP.1 numpad. Again, CP stands for checkpoint. So now I can go to my checkpoint spawner. We'll use preset, and the preset will be CP.1 number pad. And again, all it required was that message of us reaching it. So I can delete that, and now we can play our little parkour course. I reach this checkpoint. Now whenever I die, I'll spawn on that first checkpoint. And then if I reach the second one, spawning at the second checkpoint. even if I go back and die all the way over here. Cool. That was a bit of a detour, wasn't it? Hey, Dr. Metaverse, what's up? Welcome in. And yeah, Nuke, I'm glad this could help. Also, I don't think you asked about checkpoints. It was just something that came up. We still got 10 minutes if anybody wants to ask questions while you're here. All questions are good questions. Cool, so that was covering the components. We also have healing blocks if we'd like to, have a healing mechanic in our games. It does the same thing, just, reverse. It depends on whatever block you choose. And then also, it's worth mentioning, you can make the player invincible. And you can also have, when the player dies, send out a specific message. So that might be something like, kill any enemies that might have spawned while you were walking. And so the enemies will then only spawn when you get back to that location, just as an example. Last page in our global parameters was lighting and sound. So you can change the music being played. You can also just have ambience playing. I don't recommend playing any copyrighted songs in your games. From what I understand, what I was told, some of these songs were added specifically for the alpha seasons. So Steve Aoki is a good example. These are copyrighted songs. You could get in trouble, or if they ever choose to remove these, it might break your game. So I would suggest using the default music as you're learning. If you're making a game jam, especially, you don't want to get disqualified for whatever reason. And then you have your different lightings. We're going to get a lot more lightings in the next Game Maker, so that'll be fun. Cool. All right, so we made a quest. I'm just going to delete all these checkpoints. I think that was a cool little tutorial there. We'll pick up a gray block here. Oh, that's my block. Interesting how, depending on where you are in the world, you spell gray differently. Hey, close enough. Any more homework for me? I'm going to make those ask your assets after. Yeah. If you want my, advice, I suppose you could have one asset that is used for everything. And if you just want to get started like building rather than, like making the asset itself, if you want to build in the game maker, making your game, adding behaviors, I would recommend just using what the Sandbox provides. So this is the lamp that the Sandbox provides. It's pretty much optimized. It's good to go. The one I have, it's thicker, so it's easier to click. It also has less faces. So at the end of the day, this lamp that the Sandbox made has this extra kind of like base on it, which adds extra faces. If you think about it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 faces. Whereas the one I've made is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces. So my asset is more optimized for mass production, if you will. So that's why I'm able to make these 2 pages of Ask Your Dialogues. But the point that I'm trying to make here is whatever you make, and of course label however you see fit, make it make sense to you. So for me, I wrote answer on a unique asset. I've also made unique assets for health, for detecting. I've made one for just general messages or message broadcasters. You could also just start with the basics and just have one asset that does all the logic for you. And if you just want to get started today, I recommend using the assets that Sandbox provides. A lot of creators are using number pads. These are great, but what Sandbox doesn't tell you, and a lot of creators simply ignore, because it's not that big of a deal, but if you're, let's just say you have 1,000 number pads, faces add up. And the number pad itself has hidden faces. So the number pad actually has an animation inside of it. So we can see here it has a turn on and a turn off. And so there are two different number pads basically inside of another number pad. So there's like 18 faces inside this one, which you could probably use this illuminated number pad for a number of things as well, for your own reference and records. But yeah, those are hidden voxels inside of the number pad itself. And so all I'm suggesting is you create a system that works for you, but is also optimized. So what I've created is a system that, visibly works for me. So I'm visually scripting. So I understand like, oh, without even touching it, like this is an asker behavior, this is an asker behavior. Then I can also have, a lamp on the ground that would be, invisible to the eye. But when we get close to it, it represents like, hey, Jet knows I'm approaching. Woo. Cool. Good tutorial, right? Blue Tulip says, and if you reach the second place, that is the caveat or the hiccup that I mentioned before. If you want to prevent the player from doing things like that, you need to have, a something set in place to prevent that. For what I was describing, that, didn't happen. And I've already deleted the assets, so I can't review it. But generally speaking, you would probably have, because I think this is a fun little problem to have, you would have a health component that would then destroy, let's just say, your spawn point, or the detector lamp that we had before. So for example, this lamp, one that detected the player in the first place, that said like checkpoint reached, would have its own health component that would be destroyed using the same logic. So basically you had the preset number pad that was destroyed when we got to checkpoint 2. Your spawner, or the detector specifically, for when you reach checkpoint 1, would also be destroyed. So it's kind of like you're preventing that from ever happening. Yeah, the pole. Ooh, pole is a good choice there, Fred. It's not as pretty though. And it does have that base as well. So the base does add extra faces. And the only reason why I point out the faces part is if you have 1,000 of these, it'll make a difference. So if there's 1,000 of these, that's basically 2,000 of, my asker lamp. It's just kind of like thinking ahead in a way and optimizing. But yeah, I'm glad we talked about a couple behaviors and components. We didn't really discuss the things on what I thought we were going to discuss, but instead we did talk about some really interesting mechanics, such as the questing and the checkpoints. I think both of those were really good introductions to certain mechanics. And if anybody's trying to make parkour, which by the way, parkour games are the best entry into game making. If you want to make parkour games, Sandbox is perfect for it. So, the concrete tile. Yeah, that's actually probably the best default asset you can use. Says Escape Room Artist. This one has the least amount of faces. However, it is small. So again, this is why I made my own, and I encourage you all to make your own, because this is easier to click. I'm looking at these assets from a different direction, different angle. This tile is a little bit harder to click. And as long as you have your own, system in place, you understand it. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter, if I understand your project. It's you understanding your project. As long as you understand it, you're good to go. These are very compact, though, so you could probably fit all of these in a tight space. But again, that causes another problem. It's like, which one's number 1? Which one's number 2? So there's pros and cons. So yeah, you can get started with what Sandbox provides. There's no excuse not to. I wouldn't use this. This one also has a face on the bottom there. Well, I got the hiccups. Anyway, that's going to be it from me. I've been your host, Halfd0rk. Feel free to reach out on social media if you have questions. I'll be picking Game Maker back up on Monday, so 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yes, Nuke Skywalker, look forward to seeing you and whatever you make in the Metaverse. And yeah, go West, Fred and Ferd, Blue Tulip, Escape from Artist. Thank you so much. Dr. Metaverse, catch you later. Vvox, always a pleasure. Bye, everybody. I'm out.